Okay, it's all back together. Finished up the 2022 Wera season at Barber GNF. Ended up crashing at the first fast kink after museum and then got ran into. Blew the fairings all apart. So instead of just getting all new fairings, this whole side was ripped. There was a line. It was two separate pieces, so I fiberglassed those back together. Turned out all right. You can see a couple spots, but once I get decals on there, you won't see. Ripped down here. That whole section was ripped and cracked, so I refiberglassed that. The tail had a big hole, dent all cracked around in there, so yeah. Figured winter's up in Michigan, I might as well do something bike related. So I refiberglassed them all back together, sanded them, primed them, repainted them, and then did a 2K epoxy on them. So turned out pretty good. So yeah, I still got to do the fairings from Neil at Total Performance Graphics, GPX. He's in Michigan, I think Waterford, but I got one of my other YouTube videos just a couple of videos ago, show what the bike looks like with the actual rest of the decals on it. Mimics the 2022 or 23, whatever country you're in, 30th anniversary RRR SP Fireblade. So all last year I rode on the electronic suspension. So you can see they're gone. And I actually upgraded to a K-Tech rear shock. So the rear shock, this bike for some reason, and I explained it in my other videos, but the rear shock only extends to 320 millimeters. And it actually, this bike for track and race use, feels really good at like 321, 322. So I had a special eyelet made for the bottom of the Öhlins OEM shock. And then it only comes with a 110 spring. So then I had a special collar fitted so I could go to a 120 spring. Because the spring that comes on these OEM is like a 75 millimeter. It's a weird part number, and they only offer, I think, a 100 and a 110. So, but the normal 21040 dash whatever, 110, 120, 130, 140 normal springs on the TTX GP are only 60 millimeters spring length. So anyways, I put a collar in there to take up so I could actually use the more common spring. But now I just went to K-Tech, so now it's easy peasy. I can put whatever spring I want on there, and this shock, I did get it to 321. So now, last year with the electronic suspension was okay. I had a Bren tune on there just so I could unrestrict it, but I wasn't ready to pull the trigger on all the HRC kit ECU and stuff, which I did this winter. Hence why the electronic suspension is gone. But yeah, thanks to Paul at KCS, Paul Kingsburg. So when you switch to the HRC kit ECU and everything, it just doesn't even support electronic suspension. So what I did is I found WRS in Italy. Actually, if it'll focus, WRS is they make these caps, and it just gets rid of the electronic solenoid and replaces it with a manual clicker. So, which actually the stock Öhlins that come on this bike it's a pretty good setup. It's the newer NPX. So it's actually NIX 30 for the rebound side, and it's a FKR cartridge for the compression side. Pretty much the same stuff they're putting on like the Ducati V4R. So the front forks I wasn't worried about. So I just put the manual clickers for a few $100 instead of $2,500 for the cartridge kits. But the rear shock, I definitely had to do something with. So I went K-Tech, the DDS, with the hydraulic remote preload adjuster. I changed the gearing. Last year I rode 1645, which seemed pretty good, but the rear tire was pulled up pretty far with the stock chain length, 120 links. So I actually went to a 1542. So the gearing should be pretty much the same, but now with the same chain length, I can actually extend my wheelbase, make the bike a little more stable. And my thoughts are, with the 42 rear, I can swap between a 15 or a 16. So like most of the tracks, I'll run the 1542. But like if I go to MotoAmerica or Road Atlanta, somewhere where you're, you know, topping out 6th gear, I can throw a 16 on the front and 1642, and it'll be easy. It won't change, you know, the wheelbase that much. Yeah, so that'll be pretty much any gearing changes for the season. So yeah, the CRC fairings held up pretty good in the crash. I'll include some pictures in this video here. So yeah, I like to run both sides with the lever guards. I know you only really need the brake side, but I also run the clutch side. Because at Nelson's, I had a crash, and you know, when you're gripping and you have a low side to the inside, it just ground my pinky right down. So now I run these, and the next 2 low sides I had after that, I mean, granted they were on the right-hand side, but still the bar end took most of the force, and your fingers are wrapped up behind it. So yeah, I'm definitely running those on both sides, not as a cosmetic or because I think it looks cool. Just I want to save my pinky. I don't think how many more times that thing can get ground down to the bone. So running the Brembo T-drive rotors with obviously the stock Brembos, the Stylema, which are awesome. You know, the HRC kit does a whole ABS delete anyway, so you can take all that junk off, which I pretty much cut all the lines out last year and just straight ran them with the Frentubo, you know, brake lines, the ABS delete, and then I just plugged the ABS module. But now with the HRC kit, obviously I took it right out. Can't turn the dash on because granted I got everything else from HRC that we ordered, but the ECU, they weren't in production, or they didn't have any until middle of February, beginning of February. So hopefully Paul gets an email pretty soon and they get that shipped out ASAP. So I can't even turn the bike on, but it's got the HRC wire harness in it. I got the reservoir little catch can bottles up front. I got the rear reservoir delete, just gives you this cool little hose. So yeah, the GB racing covers held up pretty good. That was probably going over 100 miles an hour twice actually, and that's what it looks like. My RNG frame sliders, this one took a little bit of a beating, but not bad. All in all, this bike has crashed pretty good the last couple times. So yeah, it's pretty much gonna be the season, getting ready to go. Like I said, you gotta get the decals to finish it back off from Neil. I got another rear tire, rear wheel, so I can swap out in between races or in between qualifying and race. I'm gonna be running the Dunlops this year again. I got a little tip from Hayden Gillam's crew chief, actually, that the Dunlops really like a good set of warmers. They really need to be heated up for a minute, like get hot, and the rim hot and everything. So I think when they upgraded warmers, Hayden had mentioned to the crew chief that was like a huge difference, and then they really started kicking butt last season for MotoAmerica. So planning on getting a set of the Capits, the $1,400 ones that actually wrap to the inside of the rim, and it's got a whole separate heating coil. It heats up the rim at the same time. I know they're a little bit pricey, but for as many cold tears as I'm getting on the rear, you know, I've got a decent set of Woodcrafts. But yeah, that was the last race at Barber in October, GNF. So I got the Woodcrafts. I mean, they're pretty good. I haven't had any complaints with them, but yeah, apparently they just won't get quite hot enough, as hot as you need. So you need like, yeah, the Chicken Hawk, the Pros or whatever, the really top of the line Chicken Hawk ones. But yeah, I'm just gonna run the Capits. I know a lot of the Moto A guys, the Superbike guys and Stock 1000 guys run the Capits, and that way you can get it up to temperature. You got no worries, no questions, no issues. So we'll try that out. Yeah, the HRC kit, you got to relocate the IMU as well, which is usually under the tank to the back of the airbox. So I had to cut my fairing to make it work. The fairing was kind of pushing on it and almost like pushing it, so it was almost angled kind of not naturally to the way they have you bolted up to the frame. So I was worried that would kind of screw up my TC or like my wheelie control. So then we got the remote lever adjuster. We got the button pods. I'm pretty sure these button pods are going to work with the HRC setup. The HRC actually makes use of the OEM button, so it turns like your hazard button into rain or slick mode. It turns your like left blinker into your pit lane limiter. But yeah, those Jet Prime, I mean, these are way more robust. I mean, God forbid you go down and crash and break one of your handlebar controls and you're screwed for the rest of the weekend. So yeah, that's it. Oh, one last thing is I put this muffler slider on there, and yeah, the last two low sides I had to the right, ground down the peg, the Bonamicis, which held up great, ground down the RNG, and then the GB. But yeah, my pipe never actually got touched, which is crazy. I mean, damn near almost wore right through that thing. So yeah, I'm definitely going to keep that on. I might even think about replacing it. It's taken a little damage, but I mean, it's clamped on there pretty good. So maybe in the middle of this season, I'll update a few things. I definitely, eventually get a new one of those. Got the tank drain set up too. So you can pop this off, and then you pop another longer tube that goes into a gas can so you can drain your tank after the race. That way you're empty. So the beginning of the race, you can top off and put exactly however many liters you want. Got some tank foam in there, anti-slosh tank foam. Can't really see it. And then we've got the rain light. Everybody likes a cool looking rain light. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be the setup. Do Wera, the whole North Central, a couple nationals. Last year we did the N2 endurance. We did the relay. Entered as a relay team in the endurance, which was fun. But so we'll do all that. A couple North Centrals, GNF, and then maybe MotoAmerica. I wanted to do a Pittsburgh round, but they took it off the calendar this year for the stock 1,000, so we'll see. Maybe I'll have to hit Road America or something. I'll have to get a track day out there before, but yeah, after the first couple race weekends of Wera, I'll have enough points to get my Moto A license, so we'll see what happens. So yeah, I'll throw some pictures of the crash at Barber in here. But all in all, phenomenal bike. Crash is good. It's solid. The front end just feels so planted. Feels like it's on rails. The stock suspension last year, I mean, I was very competitive on this bike, even with the stock suspension. So hopefully the new K-Tech gives me a little more exit grip. So cool. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.